347 on Edmonton Sports Leader, TSN 1260. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Jason Strudwick with you on Edmonton Sports Leader, TSN 1260. As it is time now to go racing, speed things up in the racing report, brought to you by CanTorque. Fall is here, and that means shutdown season. They have your project covered with torque tools, tensioners, and Struddy's favorite, flange spreaders and nut splitters. All available to rent or purchase only at CanTorque.com. Colin Livingston joins us once again. Colin, how you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing just fine. I'm hoping the freezing out of my mouth is mostly gone here. I had a filling replaced this morning, so it's been an adventure the last couple hours.
Nice. Well, hey, speaking of an adventure, it's interesting in F1. A lot of teams are very upset about Red Bull's suspected exceeding of the cap costs, right? A lot of these other teams are saying, "Hey, man, like we've been running with used parts because you got to stay under the cap." What do you make of this? Now, I understand it's going to be supposedly resolved on Monday. What are you expecting? And if indeed Red Bull went over, what type of punishment is fair?
Well, there's been a lot of talk, and yes, the rumor was there's one team that's had a major breach of the cost cap, and it's widely suspected to be Red Bull. So we can't say it's absolutely them, and we can't say that there is a team that did cross until these findings are released. There's apparently one team that had what they call a material breach, which is staying within 5% of the proposed budget, and that's likely an administrative type penalty. If Red Bull, which let's just say for argument's sake, that's who the team is, and they are in a majority breach. I mean, the FIA has been so inconsistent with how they administer penalties, how they enforce the rules, how they don't enforce the rules, that predicting what's going to happen on Monday is very difficult. But I would think that if they did actually exceed by that much, the other teams will likely push for disqualification or to be excluded from the championship, because this goes back to last year's budget, which obviously what they did last year could greatly be, or could definitely be used on this year's car. And based on the advantage that Red Bull's had, that other teams don't seem to be able to close, it's really, again, always going back on the premise that this is what it is. It could be back on Monday that we find out that nobody was in breach and it was no big deal. But I'd be really surprised if that's the way things played out. But if they were able to develop parts, or they were able to do testing or development that other teams weren't able to because they played by the rules, I mean, there's got to be a very serious penalty for that. And there's got to be, there's definitely got to be a precedent set to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen, going forward.
Could one of the possible penalties be that you have to reveal all the results of the testing you did? Like, would that be a big enough secret unveiled that it really hurt a team?
I don't really know how to answer that. Yeah, I don't think we're really going to get access to a lot of, the what the teams have done, but or where they've kind of channeled that money. But it's pretty obvious that Red Bull hit on something that nobody else had. It's so hard to say where it came from, though. But you would think that if everyone's playing on level footing, yes, some people are a little bit more intuitive than others, but over the course of the year, the gap should get closer, and the gap seems to be widening. So what we're going to find out, I don't really know, but I'm definitely eager to see where this plays out. I mean, right now the championship is all but won by Red Bull in the constructors and in the drivers' championship. It's just a matter of when, not if. However, if there's this major breach found, I mean, it could actually go back and reclassify last year's championship, because that's the way the penalty is supposed to be administered, is that it's supposed to be applied towards the year that the breach actually took place. So again, it's going to be really messy if that happens. But at the same time, just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's right. So, or doesn't mean it's not right. So hopefully the FIA really steps up. I mean, there's even comments today from drivers in Japan, suggesting that this is the way this major breach is going to be announced, and drivers are mentioning that they have faith in the president, that he will do right by the series. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I will say, this past weekend, it was interesting. I saw the quote, and I know you sent it to me, quote, the most bizarre, eventful, boring race. And that's kind of what, Perez got a good start. He led, and, there were some guys, Lewis Hamilton hit the wall, but then he was able to salvage it, and he was able to finish the race, and other guys were spinning out, but really not like there wasn't a lot of change. Really, the top three in the first 5 seconds were the top three. At the end of the day, Verstappen moved up a few spots, but obviously not a lot happened. And that's going to happen every now and then in racing. I understand it. But what do you make of like kind of the remainder of the series? Like it's just a matter of time before Max wins the championship. And the Constructors Series, Colin, I don't really think that's really much of a race either, right? Even Mercedes admitted after last weekend that it's going to be pretty tough for them to even challenge Ferrari. So I can't remember the last time F1 really didn't have much up for grabs for the final few races of the season. It's kind of going to be uneventful. And that's not bad, I guess. Hey, Verstappen's been really good, but it does kind of make it kind of ho hum leading down the stretch here.
Well, Gregor, I mean, maybe your memory is a little bit shorter, or you just haven't been paying attention for as long. But the last bunch of years that Mercedes really dominated, the last 7 years before Red Bull, there have been a couple of real stinker years where Hamilton won with
17, I think it was, right? Was it 2017? Was the 1 year he just crushed him? But
yeah, and Mercedes, nobody's been close to challenging Mercedes for the constructors. I mean, Ferrari had a couple of years where it seemed like Vettel and Hamilton would fight for the championship, but at the end of the day, Mercedes was heads and shoulders above everyone else. Yeah, it's a matter of time, but there's still a lot to play for. I mean, Alpine and McLaren fighting for fourth and fifth. Mercedes is closing the gap on their development. They've had the potential that they could have won a race. Probably on 2 or 3 occasions where strategy just bit them in the backside. Ferrari is getting quicker. They're not really able to keep up with Red Bull right now, but with a little bit of good fortune, you never know what can happen, or a little bit of bad fortune to a front runner. So there's still drivers are still going to be fighting for wins. That's super important. The more points you have on the constructor side of things turn into a bigger payday at the end of the year. So, and then there's still a couple of drivers who are fighting for their life. Mick Schumacher was widely regarded to be out of the car at the end of the year, and now there's kind of suggestion that he could be back with Haas next year. So there's a lot going on. The follow the leader thing at Singapore, I mean, that was really just a side effect of the fact that they were on those intermediate tires, that there was really only one line that those cars could take. And even towards the end of the race, when they were able to get onto slicks, you couldn't pass. That's how, Lewis got a little impatient, or you could say that, he tried to seize the opportunity. He was a lot faster than Vettel at the end of the race. Tried to make a move. Once he got onto the damp track, he was toast. Verstappen did the same thing earlier in the race. So it was kind of fun to watch, where you've got Vettel 4-time champion, Lewis 7-time champion, and Verstappen 1-time and soon to be a 2-time champion, nose to tail there for about 12 laps. This weekend, hopefully, in Japan, they're talking about a bit of rain this weekend, but the FIA, again, I'm not sure what they're so timid to let these guys go out on wet tires, like the full wet rain tires, that they're really starting to hamper the racing. The race could have started last weekend on wet tires, but they have this whole pre-race procedure and it was delayed because of rain. And when they started, it was just, straight to intermediates, took away all the strategy. There was really no opportunity to pass. I'm not sure why they even supply a wet tire anymore if they're that opposed to running it.
So are they just opposed because they're fearful of more, like it'll lead to more crashes?
I think this goes back to last year at Spa, where, the race ended after a lap and a half under caution, where they tried to run, but it was too wet. And now nobody wants to make that decision anymore and get into that situation. So, but at the same time,
that's when they raced two laps under the caution, right? Just to classify it as a race, and the fans didn't get reimbursed.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody wants to see that, but I mean, I want to see these guys race in the wet. I mean, we still do it in go-karts, they still do it in IndyCar. Like, I don't know why at the pinnacle of technology, they can't let these guys go out there. There is a situation where it is just too wet to run, where you've got, considerable pooled water that no matter what tire you have on, the car's not going to go through it safely. I get that you can't run in that situation, but why they have this wet tire available and they just won't run it anymore, it makes no sense.
One last one for you here, and look ahead to this weekend's action in Japan. And I thought it was interesting. You sent this video from, let's say around 1990, and they showed one recently, and the difference in, at least what I saw, in the vibration of the car, have they smoothed out that much in, call it 30 years?
Well, keep in mind that the camera technology has also improved a great deal. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can put these up on the socials when we're done here. But yeah, watching Senna run around in the olden days where they used to have to pull their hand off the steering wheel. It was a sequential gearbox.
Oh, it's crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Shifting gears.
And you see Lewis running his lap there in 2018. And it's like he's just out for a Sunday drive, like how deep they can drive the car. His wheel isn't bouncing around in his hand. He just pointed it where he wanted to go and he was able to do it. So it's not that the cars are easier to drive, but they've improved so much from the olden days that a lot of the control and a lot of the drive is no longer in the driver's hands like it used to be. Like a driver like Senna used to be able to make a world of difference to a mediocre car. Nowadays, if your car is mediocre, that's the best you're going to be able to do. You can't put Lewis Hamilton in a Haas and expect that he's going to be running up front. You can't put Max Verstappen in the Williams and expect that he's going to challenge for wins. But in the olden days, you used to be able to move up the grid just by having a great driver. So yeah, I got a kick out of that.
Will they ever get back to that, do you think, Colin? Like, is there a way to have the technological advancements still be good, but also allow better drivers, if they have a weaker car, to use their skills more?
I think we did a lot of that this year with the new aero package, allowing cars to be able to follow. I mean, the whole race in Singapore, again, for the most part, wasn't at top speed because of the wet, but these cars are running nose to tail for 15, 20 laps without cooking the tires and without really losing control. So it'll never go back to the way it used to be. Just like, in hockey, we're not going to see the era of Gordie Howe again. You're just not going to see those things just don't repeat themselves. But, hopefully we get a couple of dry races to end the year. We get to see some good racing and start setting the stage for the 2023 season.
Colin, great stuff, man. Have a good one. We will talk to you next Thursday.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
We'll find out on Monday, although we got this report, listener Rob sent us, just the latest from Sky Sport, that they're reporting that because Toto Wolff had claimed Red Bull was being investigated for potentially breaching the spending cap rules of 145 million. And Sky Sports News understands that it was only, quote, minor breaches, which would carry less severe penalties. So, but here's the thing, like, if you allow them to go over 5 million, it's a lot of money. And, like, to me, a salary cap's a salary cap.
I agree.
You should be able to, there should be no, if you're over $1 or you're over $10 million, you're over.
I agree. It's because that's the spirit of the rule.
Yes.
There's a reason we don't go over. If you go over, you're disqualified.
Yeah. And
simple.
Otherwise, people are going to be like, oh, okay, so geez, wow, this other part of this. And hey, maybe you can, wow, geez, I can go over 5 million. Okay. Yeah. It's still 5 million. And I get that 5 million doesn't go very far when you're replacing all those parts. I understand it. But you can't be half pregnant. Yeah. You either have a salary cap or you don't.
No, I agree. And those guys will know maybe what the fines are. Like other teams we watch it. They say, well, let's say you get fined or whatever. There's nothing significant.
Of course, they're going to, all it's going to do is encourage guys to, everybody's going to do it.
Well, that might be worth it. I might have whatever the penalty is, it might be worth it for that.
Yes.
To get that extra part. You hear guys running on used parts, might be worth it to have that. So I'm not, I don't completely understand that.
No. Like either make it that you can do it and have a penalty that you pay, a luxury tax in baseball, but at least everybody knows what it is.
Sure.
Don't say, well, if you get caught, because basically you're just encouraging people to cheat.
Oh yeah.
It's basically what baseball did with steroids for many years.
Yeah.
Geez, you know what? It's helping the sport. Geez, we really need the help right now, but we don't really want you to do it. And then all of a sudden when they get busted, well, now we're going to come.
Right.
Oh, well. So I don't like it.